The main event of Misfits Boxing 22 ended as pretty much everyone thought it would, with Darren Till knocking Luke Rockhold out cold in the third round. In the co-main event, former UFC fighter Tony Ferguson defeated Salt Papi in his boxing debut via TKO, also in the third round. And world champion jiu-jitsu black belt Dillon Danis defeated a YouTuber via guillotine at 15 seconds of the first round. We'll dive into the details and break down all three finishes in just a moment, but first let me say thank you for watching My Fitness Fight, the channel where we work together to get 1% better every day. If you like the video, please remember to tap that like button and subscribe if you want to see more content from this channel. Alright, I'm going to go over the main event knockout first and quickly, because to me it's the least interesting finish. Like I said, it was very predictable. I published a video yesterday in which I literally said that the most likely outcome was Till knocking out Rockhold, and the odds makers very clearly agreed with me. I don't think that anyone really thought Luke Rockhold had a chance. It's not that he's not a great fighter, but he's 8 years older and he's not really a boxer, whereas Till is a pretty good boxer. So the fight seemed pretty one-sided, and just a couple seconds before this freeze frame, Till landed a nice jab that kind of snapped his head back and got him moving towards the ropes. Might have kind of stunned him a little bit. He may have already been concussed because he got knocked down pretty badly in the first round and ate a number of other nasty punches. And as soon as Till had him on the ropes, he just poured on a few hooks, and this left hook landed right on the button, and he just slumps down right after he ate this, and his leg got curled up in a nasty way underneath of him when he fell, but it looked like they were able to get him off of it pretty quickly, so hopefully his knee isn't damaged too badly. Anyways, there's not much to say about this. I do think that Till is a pretty good boxer, and he was moving well. He looks really fit. He definitely hits hard, but it barely even feels like watching a fight at this point, so I kind of wish they wouldn't put these kinds of things on. Moving on now to the co-main event. This was Tony Ferguson versus Salt Papi, and it starts in a similar situation here with Ferguson having backed Salt Papi up against the ropes. And there's actually a similar age discrepancy here. Ferguson, I think, is 10 years older than Salt Papi, but there's a huge difference between Salt Papi and Darren Till. Darren Till is a career professional fighter and a very good boxer. Salt Papi isn't a bad boxer. He was moving well in this fight, and he seemed quite tough. In fact, I think he could have kept going. This stoppage seemed a little bit early, although I still think Ferguson would have gotten the job done. But there's some big differences. For one thing, Tony Ferguson is actually a pretty good boxer, and Salt Papi is not a high-caliber professional fighter, whereas Darren Till is a pretty high-level professional boxer, and Luke Rockhold has never really been known for his boxing, and he does not have a great chin. And I kind of have mixed feelings about this bout because, on the one hand, I would have preferred if Tony just stayed retired, but on the other hand, I'm glad he won, and I'm hoping that he can take this victory and ride off into the sunset, because I know that he didn't go out of the UFC the way he would have wanted to, so it would be great if this can kind of be his final shining moment in the ring. And let's break it down. So the reason that Tony is reached past Salt Papi's shoulder here is because he just landed a really awkward left hand. It was basically a left straight, but it landed the way that a hook would because he's turned almost completely perpendicular. You can see Salt Papi is facing pretty much straight across the ring, and Tony is facing almost at a 90-degree angle here. And he was already rotated out like that, and he just kind of like stepped into this left hand, and it clipped Salt Papi on the chin, and Tony followed it right up with more of a proper left hook here. And to his credit, Salt Papi rolled under that really nicely, but then Tony tagged him with this right hand and wobbled him a little bit, and Salt Papi kind of came back out here and tried to get back in it, tried to start throwing back, but Ferguson just kind of threw a flurry on him. He landed a nice right hand right here, followed by this left across the jaw. And then he threw about 12 punches in a row, and I think at least half of them landed. And the part of this flurry that really did the damage was the right hand splitting Salt Papi's guard. You can see Tony landed a right hand right in between his guard and snapped his head back with it. This is at 21 seconds. And then he threw a left and then landed another right hand right down the pipe. And then he threw a left and then another right hand down the pipe that landed perfectly as well. So at this point, we're at 20 seconds, and he landed 3 or 4 right hands in the space of like 2 or 3 seconds right here. And then a second later, we have the ref jumping in to stop it. And on the one hand, I do think that it was an early stoppage because from this camera angle, you can see that Salt Papi wasn't really out. He was definitely still aware of what was going on. But in the ref's defense, the ref couldn't really see that. All he could see was that Salt Papi wasn't moving, he wasn't adjusting his guard, and he just ate like 4 or 5 punches in a row in a flurry of 12. So I can understand that side of it. It still seemed like an early stoppage, but I can see how, from the ref's perspective, it might have seemed like the right decision. And then in Warren Spencer versus Dillon Danis, of course, we had the 15-second guillotine submission. And I didn't know anything about Warren Spencer before this fight, but I still kind of guessed that it would end something like this. Not exactly this fast, but I did look up a little information on Warren Spencer after watching the fight and looking into it a little bit. And I don't think he's an MMA fighter or a grappler at all. He has an amateur boxing record of 2-2. Actually, I think his last boxing fight might have been professional, and that's not a very good boxing record, but he was actually moving pretty well in the 10 seconds before he was on the mat, and he had a pretty nice jab, which he landed 1 out of the 1 times that he threw it. So I think he knows how to box, and he's obviously in good shape, but I don't think he has any MMA or grappling experience other than whatever preparation he did for this fight. And I went on his YouTube channel, and he does have a few videos that are kind of about him preparing for this fight, but they don't show a lot of the training that he did. And when he showed the gym that he was training at and talked about it, it kind of sounded like the wrestling and grappling was an afterthought. Like, he's a boxer, he was training at a Muay Thai gym. He mentioned wrestling, but it doesn't sound like they did a lot of that. And it's not like he would have been able to gain enough skill to actually be able to out-grapple Dillon Danis or anything like that, because Danis is a champion caliber black belt, but he could have worked on enough counter wrestling and strategy and tactics to avoid the grappling, which is literally the opposite of what he ended up doing. And a lot of people are clowning him on social media for this, but this is actually very understandable based on his level of experience. This is exactly what happens to everybody for the first month or so that they start Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or catch wrestling. And basically, he gave Dillon his neck. So let's break it down. This is 5 seconds into the fight, and Dillon came forward a bit faster and took the center of the ring. And then Dillon came in and threw a jab. He's in the southpaw stance, so he's jabbing with his right hand. And it's actually hard to see exactly what happened here, but from what I can tell, Spencer slipped Dillon's jab just about perfectly, and I think he threw a right either to the body or maybe an uppercut, and it must have either missed or just glanced off, because it doesn't look like it hurt Dillon very much. It did get him to back off a little bit here, and now we're 2 seconds later, and Dillon kind of stepped back and reset. And you can see he's grinning as he comes in. He's got his guard up nice and high. And Spencer just stepped in and snapped his head back with a nice jab, caught him right on the chin with it. And you can see Dillon was slow on trying to parry the jab, but after the jab lands, he gets his arm down on top of Spencer's arm. And then I think what probably happened in Spencer's mind here is that when Dillon's arm landed on top of his like this, you can see that that's like Dillon's forearm almost on top of his shoulder, and their feet are right together here. So I think he realized that he was in grappling range, and he kind of panicked trying to figure out if Dillon was going to grab him or throw a punch. And because of that, I think he defaulted to whatever he learned in grappling. And in grappling, whether you're doing like freestyle wrestling or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Judo, when someone has their arms up as high as Dillon's arms are, it makes it easy to get in on their hips or to get in for a body lock so that you can take them down. And so I think Spencer just had like a momentary lapse in thinking here when he went, oh crap, this high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt is close enough to grab me. I need to grapple him. And he just defaulted to what little he had learned, which is, hey, his body and hips are open to a body lock or a double leg. So he ducks under and basically kind of goes for a double leg, and you can see Dillon is basically already laughing here because he knows what's going to happen. This is like the 100,000th time that Dillon Danis has been in this situation, and this is like the 3rd time that Spencer has been in this situation, so it's not exactly fair. And he didn't even really get in on Dillon's hips, he just kind of got in for a bit of a body lock here, and Dillon just immediately kind of drapes his arm around his neck and gets him into this front headlock position. And we're at 4:51 here, so we're still only 9 seconds into the fight. This guy's already given Dillon Danis his neck. And again, a lot of people are making fun of him, calling it a stupid decision, but I don't think it was a conscious decision. I think it was just him having a momentary lapse in thinking about what he's doing and kind of defaulting to what little grappling he knows, which put him in a very bad situation. And so we're at 4:51, and Dillon is just starting to wrap the head here. And here we're still at 4:51, but they've rotated about 45 degrees. And I can't see if Dillon has his hands connected together yet, but they're probably very close to connected if he hasn't quite managed to clasp them together, which basically means that it's already over. And Spencer is kind of showing his inexperience here again, because his posture is immediately collapsing. You can see his spine is down almost to a 45-degree angle already when he should be wanting to keep it as straight as he can. And also, he should really be fighting the hands already. And I know it's only been like a second since Dillon got a hold of his head, but this is something that like everyone who does jiu-jitsu gets caught with for the first month or two. And there's a number of reasons that you can get caught with this. And the one that happened here is just that he went for a really uneducated takedown and kind of put his neck right into it. And now we're at 4:50, and it looks like Dillon definitely has his hands together now, and he's starting to put his weight on Spencer and control the momentum of their turn. Now they've rotated about 90 degrees from their original position, and we can't really see the angle of his back from this camera, but it looks like his posture is completely broken. It looks like he's basically completely bent forward, which again shows a lack of experience and grappling conditioning, because as soon as someone gets a hold of your neck like that, the first thing you should be looking to do is fight the hands and maintain your posture. And if you don't have that built in as an instinct, then you're not going to be able to do it in time. And we're still at 4:50 here, and Dillon's rotated him a little bit further. And it looks like he's basically got his forearm right in on the throat now, which means that he can apply the choke. And he could have choked him right here. He could have gone for like a 10-finger guillotine or like a no-arm darce. There's a number of ways he could have finished just standing up right here, but he chose to sit through for it. So he kind of stepped through with his right leg there and used that momentum to drop his weight and kind of force Spencer to sprawl. And then he used it to sweep and get on top. And he just stepped his knee over into mount and finished with the guillotine right there. And so that wasn't really much of a fight. And it kind of makes Dillon Danis look like a can crusher. And the expression on his face right here pretty much says it all. He hasn't even got the guy's neck yet, but he's already laughing about it. And it kind of looks like the ref and the cameraman know what's about to happen as well. And I guarantee you, Spencer is going to be kicking himself for weeks over doing this. Because although I do think Dillon would probably win this fight 9 times out of 10, Spencer was moving pretty nicely and he had some slick boxing, and Dillon doesn't have very good hands. So he could have potentially knocked Dillon out or just worked him over if he had been able to stick to a strategy of being more elusive and not giving up his neck. But, you know, it's his first MMA fight. He's only even had 4 boxing fights before this. Barely any grappling training from the sounds of it. So it's completely understandable. And this could actually still be really good for his career, because from what I can see, Spencer is basically like a YouTuber / content creator, and some of his content focuses around the boxing, but some of it doesn't. And so it's not like he's like a normal professional boxer. He's an influencer boxer. And Dillon Danis is both much more followed and well-known than him, and also much more successful as a combat sports athlete in general. So I doubt that anyone really expected Spencer to win this fight, but he could turn this into a narrative. He could spend like the next year or two making content about how he wasn't ready and he's going to, do some proper training, and then he wants a rematch and all this kind of stuff. And he wouldn't need to focus all of his content on that or anything, but he could definitely use it to attract a lot of attention. And then if he actually improves his grappling and his overall MMA skills, maybe wins a fight or two, he might be able to get a rematch. So even though this fight was a little bit silly, I don't know, I still kind of enjoyed it. I like this matchup better than I like the other 2 matchups, even though Tony won his fight, and I'm glad. I just don't see the need to put 40-plus-year-old men in the boxing ring, especially not against guys who are like 10 years younger than them. But that's just my opinion. I appreciate you watching. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the content, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with a friend so that they'll remind you to come back and watch the next one.